Welcome to the Plant Cunning Podcast,
where we explore a relationship to plants, other people, and the mysteries of nature.
Coming to you from the high Allegheny Plateau in central New York.
We are your hosts, A.C. Stauble
and Isaac Hill. Today on the Plant Cunning Podcast, we have Kyle Denton from Tippecanoe Herbs, and Kyle is an herbalist and a teacher and is interested in astrological herbalism and practices that. Biofield tuning, all sorts of really interesting adjacents to herbalism and healing. And I'm really excited to get into this conversation with Kyle. So Kyle, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. It's great to meet you both, and big fan of the show. So it's an honor to be here. And thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, our pleasure. Yeah.
And you're calling in from where today?
I'm in Wisconsin. I'm in like southeastern Wisconsin, not far from Milwaukee, which is where my shop is. And
tell us a little bit about your herb shop.
Yeah, my herb shop. It's called Tippecanoe Herbs, and it's a beautiful shop. And it started as a farmer's market stand, just like a lot of herbalists do. And so I was making products and everything like that, and went from one farmer's market one year to 7 the next year. And then after that, I was like, let's get a little shop. And then we got a little incubator space where I was making stuff at a commercial kitchen, like across town. So I was over there at the kitchen like 3 days a week, and then at the shop like another 3 days a week, and then a market here and there. And then now we have a big kitchen in our own shop.
Great.
And we have a nice big storefront. So we're the type of herb shop that's like making all of our own remedies. We have, walls of our own in-home tinctures that we're growing, we're foraging, we're getting from local farmers. Everything that, is in our processed herbs are, locally sourced or organically sourced, things like ginger don't grow in Wisconsin so well, but that's it's the herb shop, and then this is the gift shop. And this time of year, it's it's the holiday season, so it's a shop.
Yeah,
and we have a little cafe there too, which is really cool. That makes things nice and cozy, and we have a nice rotating menu of like foraged drinks that are really fun, like all kinds of whatever's in abundance. We could kind of come up with a recipe, and one of my cohorts, Marky from Acorn Apothecary, is really great at establishing the menu for that. So it's awesome, and it's a gathering space too, and it's also a place where I have my clinic. So it's got all the stuff. You got the kitchen, we got the herb shop, got the teaching zone, got the herb clinic, and everything. Yeah.
Wow, that's so dreamy.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, love that.
Mm-hmm. Kind of a Moon Mercury space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally.
That's what we say. In Vedic astrology, we see Moon Mercury as the symbol for herbalist. It's in the skill trines, because there's like the healing and the nurturing, and then there's also the learning and the working with herbs and all that kind of stuff, and it goes hand in hand, I think.
Yeah, and also the place of commerce and communication, and
Right.
and like I have a counter there, and it's kind of like a bar, you go to the bar and you tell the bartender all your problems, but it's kind of like the same thing at the counter of the herb shop too, like what'll it be?
Yeah.
leave the bottle.
That's so good.
Yeah, I like that, and I think especially in our generation and younger, the bar culture is kind of dying out to a certain degree.
Yeah, I've always had this saying, because I'm an herb teacher as well, and I have lots of students, and I always have this saying that my dream is to have more bartenders in my town, more herbalists in my town than bartenders. And the town is Milwaukee. And by the way, there's like way more bars per capita than like almost every other place. And like, this is a very so it's a lofty goal, but we're on our way.
And there is this kind of connection between alcohol and herbs in medicine too. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, like a lot of tinctures are made out of alcohol, and a lot of those medicinal liqueurs were originally medicinal
chartreuse.
Yeah. Although I think even like Jägermeister was a medicinal liqueur,
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Fernet, aperitifs. These are like, my wife's from Italy, and so we go back to Italy very often. And it's one of my favorite things is just sitting down for dinner at 6 p.m. and having a meal for the next 5 hours. And the reason why everyone is so fit and beautiful is because they have their bitters, because they have their espresso, because they have their amaro. So they get the artemisias from the mountains and they ferment them, and the monks know all about that. And so, and then in American colonial culture, like there was root beer, fermented alternatives that like of dandelion and sarsaparilla and sassafras and things like that would have, and nowadays it's just like an abomination. There's no marshmallow in marshmallows. There's no roots nor is there any beer in root beer either. So it's
high fructose corn syrup and carbonation.
Right,
Isaac
exactly.
makes a really good root beer with all those things, with reishi, sarsaparilla, burdock, and
It's fun.
it's so yummy.
Yeah, we make one of those for our cafe too. It's good. And a little coriander, a little birch bark, some wintergreen.
Birch
Oh,
bark.
the birch.
That's,
Yeah.
that's
That
crucial.
flavor is just so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how did you get into all of this in the first place? How did you come to the plant path?
Fun question. Okay, so like a lot of herbalists, I can just recall being a young kid in the outfield, no one's getting the ball over there, and I'm picking up dandelions. But actually, it really started for me at about 4:30 p.m. on a Friday in September of 2010. Isaac's like, "Oh, we could probably
Yeah,
put a
did
chart."
you do you have the chart for that?
No, but we could like one of these
Inception
days. I'm gonna book with you. We can look through it.
Okay.
And that's and there's a whole bunch of like mystical things that had happened building up to this moment. But at that moment, I was struck by a car while riding my bike. Fast home. I was going home as fast as I could because I was in a band and we were gigging that night. We were gigging out of town and I was playing. I'm a guitar player, and I got busted up. Went head over heels. Broke my bike. Broke my collarbone. Concussion. All the stuff. But we were about to head out to Europe for a 3-week tour, like a couple of days later. And so I didn't want to miss that show because I didn't want to like let the band know that like, there's doubt about this tour or whatever. And my collarbone was broken. I was like, if you could just put the guitar on me, then I could still play, And so we went on tour and we're on, living the rock and roll lifestyle. We're in Europe, everything's in a van and I'm just busted up and I didn't make time for myself to heal. And it's just like a lot of illness or a lot of disease, if you don't give it the time to heal, or if you don't let it express whatever the lessons are for the expression, then it just goes deeper into the tissues, goes deeper into the body. And so that's what happened. My girlfriend at the time, who's my wife now, she's studied a form of massage panchakarma from the Ayurvedic tradition in an effort to heal me, and started doing some panchakarma. I was like, wow, this stuff is really good. And she wanted to come to America to be with me and also like see if she could learn it. And she found that there was an Ayurveda school in my town, and it was actually one of the more prominent ones. I was like, oh, what's that? Cool. How about I enroll instead? And so I enrolled, and the first day that we were in class, we're kind of like sat around in a circle, and the teacher asked like, what is it that puts you on this path? It's just the same question, like asking us to reflect, like what is it that brought you here? And I thought about that moment, and I thought for a second, I was like, wait a second, that happened a year ago to the day. Holy moly. And then as it went around the room, at the moment of impact, a year to the moment of impact, then it was my turn. And I was like, this is a sign. I was like, I may be dense at sometimes, and I may have got knocked on the head with a car without a helmet on, but I could recognize this as a sign. And I was like, all right, here we are. This is it. God put me here, and I'm on the plant path now. And so I learned the Ayurvedic tradition, and it was great. It was great because I had like a clinical background, and I had help with counseling and everything like that. So that gave me my clinical chops and interviewing chops. But the herbs that were presented was like, here's a jar of powder, it's white, and this one's called shatavari. And here's a jar of powder, and this one's also white, and it's a little bit more creamy. This one's ashwagandha. And I'm like, I don't really make sense of this. Because I'm into the growing and touching and understanding the signatures and learning through the plants in the relational sense. And so while I really appreciated Ayurveda and that you know what brought me to that, I was like, I need to seek out a Western herbalist. I need to seek out Western teachers. I need to like understand what it's like about this tradition here in my bioregion and have a real real relationship with the plants themselves. And the rest is history. After that, you get a farmer's market stand. I was making products for my clients and things like that. And I was like, oh, I got a little extra salve here. I could probably sell it. And then next thing I know, I got a full blown herbal business, and now I'm doing kind of everything.
Right?
And I'm teaching it
Yeah.
too. And that's how it goes, So,
I
uh,
love it.
yeah, but look both ways before you cross. But,
Yeah.
but if you, but if it does get you, maybe it just knocks you onto the path. You never know.
That's
So
a cool story.
Yeah, sometimes those moments, that they can be difficult in the moment, but then they open new doors.
Mm.
absolutely, yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I think it's good to have that kind of like the Ayurvedic background, and then you understand that way of seeing things, and then when you learn the Western herbs that actually grow around you, and you have access to, then you have a framework for it too. And I think that's important for herbalists. I mean, there is a Western framework, but it is very there's a lot of holes in it too.
Yeah, and there's also holes in the Ayurvedic framework. There's
Yeah.
holes in there's holes in Chinese medicine framework. It's kind of like, you have metric wrenches and you have the regular standard wrenches. There's some things that you just need to go to a different system to get. And that's what
Yeah.
the thing that I love most is the foundational aspect of just knowing the energetic architecture of the elemental qualities that things are describing in various systems. So in the Western systems, we got the four elements, and how it's related to like more of like a four element seasons that we might experience here in the West, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. And then in Ayurveda, I got the three, but then they have three seasons really. And then in Chinese medicine, it's not even like elements so much. It's like phases, which is also cool because it's more of like, instead of it being states, which I think of as like nouns, it's like verbs. It's this more transient type of explanation. So they're all different and they all have their own like poetry, but they're all I mean, you could take an herb like dandelion or something like maybe a strictly Western herb like echinacea angustifolia or something, and then look at it in these various frameworks and kind of arrive at pretty much the same place for how you would be administered in a clinic in all these different ways. And that's really what I'm interested in, is like how to think about herbalism rather than like what herb for what thing or committing all this stuff to memory. My memory isn't that good. I
Yeah.
shouldn't say that about myself. My memory's great, but
Yeah.
but in order to improve more room for my memory, I think it's better to just have the foundational aspect, like you were saying. So yeah.
Yeah, and understand the principles,
Hmm.
and those more like the subtle structures for why things are the way that, how you classify things and how you utilize things. And yeah, I feel you very very similarly. I've studied in Western astrology and in Vedic astrology, and they're good for different things too.
Hmm.
Like there are certain things you can only see with the Vedic astrology or vice versa.
Yeah.
But there's still this like there's still the same tree outside.
Yeah, exactly.
If you talk the same person, you're talking with the same person, you're seeing the same person, they still have the same issues coming up, but you can see them in different ways.
Right.
Yeah. So one thing that we're interested in about the way that you practice is this bioterrain vitalism.
Yeah.
So what is bioterrain vitalism? What does that mean?
Uh,
How do you
okay.
come up
So
with
well,
that?
I like to combine the principles of vitalism, which is honoring the vital force, the subtle vital force that is preceding. This is kind of like the etheric element, which is kind of like the preceding before all of the material elements. That there's this subtle that informs and kind of carries the gross. The gross, dense, the material is kind of subject to the confines within this etheric vital force. And and honoring that, and just recognizing that the with where in the vital force is there deficiency, is there a blockage, is there lack, is there toxicity, and then helping make way for that. And so when it comes to the bioterrain, this is, I would say, a way of describing this philosophy. Maybe some people would recognize um, the complications with germ theory, and a lot of herbalists do. We a lot of herbalists, we pay homage to vitalism, but then when it comes down to it, they might say like, well, this actually trumps that. And with the bioterrain vitalism, it's like, no, the vital force is on top, and everything else is secondary to that. So that's kind of my position, really, and my philosophy is from the terrain. The terrain is everything, and I like to combine that too, because I'm using a technique in my clinic um, and just in general to understand plants, called biofield tuning, and maybe we can get into that a little bit too. But yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and I think it's important too to be looking at the vital force. It's like it's and the way I see things, I'm shaped by like Western esoteric thought and also Vedic thought, and both have these planes, either planes or koshas. But
Yeah.
we have the physical body, we have the etheric body, which is the vital body. Then there's the astral,
Astral.
and then the spiritual, and they're all and it's like the physical is kind of downstream from all those more subtle
Hmm.
bodies. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Rudolf
it's
Steiner talked about that too. He talked about like the kingdoms, the mineral kingdom. So that would be the physical, and that is like, you could say, like in the alchemical tradition, like that's the salt or the capacitance for the storage of all the others, like the memory. That everything comes down, like our computers, our phones, everything is all the information is stored on a crystal. So that's that mineral aspect. And what separates the mineral aspect from life is water. So water moving through the mineral body is what makes life to plants. And so that's what plants are, and another way of saying that is the etheric. So the plants have that etheric body, and then the astral body, as you mentioned. Another way of, I think of that, is like the animal body, or if that sounds too occult for people, then just think of like um, the autonomic nervous system, the fight or flight, rest and digest, all the things that animals do. Like right in my backyard, at nighttime, there's a couple of bucks that are bucking it up. They're locking horns, and these horns are like literal spiraling projections of their astrality, which is, I'm warm blooded, and I want to be in charge of like the harem and everything else. I want to show my, stuff. And so when plants they get influenced and they tickle themselves in the sphere of the astral, that's where they get their warmth from, or we could say their volatile oils, or even their toxicity, their poison, their alkaloids, the things that are warming. And when they're more influenced by the mineral, then we also have like things that are like lichens and the things that are growing on rocks. And so we could see these spheres in all different ways, and we can give them different names. And so I think that was a really hard way for me to see things and like tie it, and like, oh yeah, I was reading, like I'm looking at this image right now in front of me of the monochord from Robert Flood, and it has all of these different spheres and of influence in creation. But another way of just saying it is like your minerals, your water, your warm-blooded animal type bodies, and then the egoic consciousness that we have, and then also the witnessing factor that we can get behind that. And these are the other planes of like, available of spirituality that we have too.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting way of a good way of,
Yeah.
of looking at those planes. And there's also, we can slice them up and dice them up in different ways of understanding. And that's one of the useful things about learning these different formulations or concept structures. um, but
Yeah, you mentioned biofield tuning, and I wanted to see if you could get more into that. Did you have anything else on the planes or?
yeah, no, yeah,
Okay.
let's talk about because that's working on the vital energy.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of working in this pocket between, I would say, the etheric. So here's the idea. The idea is that we're electric beings. There's really no dispute to that. You have everybody's seen a hospital heart monitor, right? And so you have your heart is electric. It's emanating an electric field. It's actually the strongest electric field that we have in our body. So it entrains all the others. But people know that you could put the same electrodes on your brain and other organs. Everyone's got this electricity moving through them. We have piezoelectricity, which is kind of like a way of demonstrating that is like you could take a quartz and wrap it up really tight, or you could smash it with a hammer in the dark and you'll see a spark come out. Well, all of our bones have this crystalline structure, and our fascia does too. So every time we move, every compression that we make, there's a charge that's moving through our bones and our fascia. There's a charge across the surface of the membrane of all of our cells, which allows the interfacing between, leaving the metabolites behind or sucking them in. So there's no dispute that there's an electrical charge, but for some reason, even though it's also well known that wherever there's an electrical field, there is also a magnetic field present. There's no dispute about that in science at all either. But for some reason, modern science has a hard time recognizing, even though the biofield, the word the biofield was coined by the National Institute of Health and, the three letters and all that stuff, agency, in case we need to appeal to any authority on this topic fallaciously. But but it's there. We have this biofield. So that biofield, this magnetic field, this plasma that's around us, it's a subtle field, and we could say heart math and things like that. And just like there's instruments that can detect the subtle electro impulses generated by all of our body, we could also detect the places where the waves or the standing waves or the movement of our energy throughout this field is congested. The vital force is congested in those places, and so the biofield is awesome because it is at the edge of our biofield. It's usually about 6 feet away from us. So we have this toroidal shape. Just think of it like an apple. We have this apple around us, right? And we're kind of like inside the core of the apple. Mm. And at the edge of the biofield is like what we see in nature, the bark of a tree. So what you see in the bark of a tree, you're looking at the oldest part of the tree. If you ever see a tree that's cut down and you count the rings, you could count, oh, okay, this tree is whatever years old. And the same that you could do for the biofield. The closest to the center is the closest to our experience. So there's ways of detecting. I use a tuning fork, actually, and I just strike my tuning fork, and it has an objective tone. I brought one, actually. I'll strike it here if you don't mind.
Yes.
This is 222 hertz.
Okay.
And this is made really nice stainless steel made from Biofield Tuning Store by my mentor, Eileen McCusick, in this endeavor, but 222, here we go. This sound, actually 222, after listening to your interview with Dr. William Morris, the astrologer acupuncturist, I went and got his book. I found it so interesting. And in his book, he talks about the corresponding hertz frequencies for various planets, and he mentioned 222 as the sound of Venus. So this particular one I always like to play out in nature, and it's like it gives me my attention, but it's not like the hard get to class kind of bell or sirens coming bell. It's just this nice like drop in bell. But anyway, so I'll take my tuning fork, and it has this objective tone. And as I'm moving it through the field, sometimes, just like in a tissue state model, we could find some areas of different qualities of this ring. And it's just so interesting because once you pull it back out again, just a few inches away, it rings itself again, and then it could come in and get all crunched or like
Oh,
muffled, or it can get like really sharp, like yeah, that would be like hot or pain. It
wow.
could get like you can even feel it like that's like, that would be like tension or fear.
Okay.
So I've taken the felt and audible qualities of the tuning fork and kind of matched them up with tissue state model, and I can correspond it in a timeline to when this vital force has has been misdirected, as
Mhm.
in like and there's also an anatomy to that my teacher Eileen McCusick has put together. So could say that like somebody who's halfway through the field, that's halfway through their life. Let's just say they're 40 years old. So oh, here's something at 20 years old, and it's in the right hip, and there's a lot of pain. Is there something corresponding to what the right hip represents, which could be like having to work, having to put yourself out there, or something like that at that time. And a lot of times, almost, I mean, every time, I would say it's very, very accurate as a practitioner. So I could find places, so I could say like, in a classic interview style where we're really trying to get to the bottom of like, when did this start? What preceded this pattern to make that pattern occur? And with the tuning, it's kind of like working backwards, where I could hear it and I could say, why is it at this particular area the vital force has been misdirected or is just held on there? Another way of thinking about it is that our body is so adept to adaptation that it opens up a program. It opens up, it's like a browser opening up another window, and it says like, here's the protocols for this particular period of time. Okay, you just got left by a partner, something, you just got hit by a car, you just whatever. Like, how am I able to survive? Here's the protocols. Okay, so my job as human being on this earth or whatever is to like read the protocols, shake them off, digest them. The rabbit got away from the coyote, and then just get back to it, right? But next day occurs, another memo, another memo, another memo, another memo. And before you know it, your browser is all gunked up with a whole bunch of open tabs. And so if just teetering on this metaphor of the body is mechanical, more like electric instead, if my computer has a particular amount of bandwidth or charge, that gets drained by more stuff that I have open. So the vital force is the same way. If I have these programs that I've never really integrated back into my body, I've never really felt whatever it is that needed to be felt fully. And because it was a protective measure, maybe it was easier for me at the time to just go on tour or, plan the funeral or, do the busy work instead of just lean into the hard work and really feeling it fully. And so that's what this thing that I do has an opportunity to do. And because I'm an herbalist, I work with herbs. I put herbs at these places. And so I'm looking for, I create an herbal remedy. I tune it in there. I'm actually tuning the plants in there, but I'm also tuning the etheric version of the plant, like I could say the spirit of the plant, into these particular areas. And I'm making the client a tincture, but it's also the spirit of the plant that's coming in. So it's like, wow, you really needed rose to get through that moment, or you really needed, it's like going back to the root of the problem. And I think that's what all practitioners are really trying to do, is get to the root of the problem. And so here I find this way to be, putting this plant at the place that we needed it.
Do you mean physically when like you take a plant or you take a tincture of a plant and you hold it near the body part with your tuning fork?
It's a really good question. So the long answer is a little bit of both. So a little bit of the calling in the spirit of the plant and a little bit of the actual plant. So one of the things that I learned one of the things I do in clinic is pulse work. And my original pulse teacher she had from the Ayurvedic tradition, she had this superpower that they call in Ayurveda siddhi. And her siddhi was pulse taking or pulse reading at a distance. She never said taking. Pulse reading at a distance. She could do remote pulse reading. And so that was my first exposure to the pulse world, was like, oh, this is possible. And I don't, I'm not very adept at the pulse reading. I don't as much as like, like some of these other clinicians are. But one of my
Not your city.
yeah, right, exactly. It's not my city, but maybe I am. But one of my teachers later on was Matthew Wood, and I learned from him through tertiary, just like he just kind of like drops it in there. He never actually taught this method, but he was first he was taught that by reading the pulse, you're taking the case, you read the pulse, you put the plant on the person, you put a plant or you administer a drop, you watch for the changes and everything like that. But then he learned that, well, you could do that by just writing the name of the plant on a piece of paper and putting it in their hand. And as weird as it sounds, and as like unbelievable as it sounds, it's actually accurate. I've learned how to do that. I've learned how to write down a name of a plant. And this is like back in the spirit, this is spiritual tradition stuff. Like the Bible talks about this in the Garden of Eden. Like Adam was tasked with naming the plants. Like all the spiritual traditions know that when you name something, you're like conjuring, you're calling forth the actual spirit, but also the way you're actually like giving it a job or a location, and calling in its like what it is that you're asking. So this is how I do a lot of cases, just regular, not tuning fork cases, is I'll write down plants and I'll test them. I'm like, oh, this one, all right, black cohosh, what do you think? Oh, the pulse is like really freaking out for this. Okay, that's not the right one. Okay, here's this one, and it just like makes it nice and easy. Well, now when I'm doing my biofield tuning, I kind of do the same thing. I'll get like it's kind of my fun proprietary way, but I'm sure if anybody's interested in trying this and in perfecting it and letting me know how they do it, that's fine too. But kind of like a flower essence, I'll take a vessel of water that is, spring water, the best water and nicest vessel that I got. And I will write the name of the plant underneath it, and I'm just kind of imprinting it. And as I'm moving my fork through, and by the way, when I'm moving my tuning fork through somebody's field, it feels like fishing. When you're fishing and you're like, zzz, okay, and you're moving through the water, and then all of a sudden you get kind of snagged on something. You're like, oh, what is that? If you're fishing a lot, you're like, that was a rock, that's a bite, that's a weed. And the same kind of thing, like I can move my tuning fork through, but I'm like, there's something here. Let me name it. What is it? Let me name it, and then I'll put a plant in there. And then I'll use that water to create the final thing. So I'll either use like drops of the water of all the plants that I've had as like mother essence, and I'll add it to, let's just say I'm working with rose and wood betony and dandelion root. And by the way, when I'm doing these biofield tunings, my formulas are like, they don't make any sense. And it's true. It's like, I don't understand it either, but it's like, okay, this is what it's called for. And so I'll take the master essence and I'll put it into a tincture that has, brandy extract 1 to 2 or 1 to 4 of dandelion, rose, and wood betony. And then there's the master essence in there as well. So there's that like fifth element, that subtle, that is informing the gross, that's giving direction to the gross. And the other thing too, and so the client will take this, like they experience changes, the shift occurs in the moment. But just like all healing, just like, when you have this big revelation, you're like, oh my God, my mind has changed about something. I've totally changed about something. The difficulty is the integration. And that's where people often fall off, is like, we might have this big, mind-blowing thing, but then like, I didn't really integrate it. And that's where herbs, to me, this is, as the vitalist, if I'm being honest, there's this bell curve, you've seen the memes of the bell curve, and the beginner and the advanced are like, they have the same viewpoint. Right. Okay. So my viewpoint is, I don't know if the herbs are doing anything. And that's kind of the thing, is like, okay, I wonder that from a beginner, and then at the end, okay, they have all these constituents and they're doing this, they're influencing this. And then at the end, I'm like, I think it's the person's vital force that's doing it. And I think the herbs are just kind of like guiding the way that the person's vital force can be integrated. And I think of this as also a way of like dispelling the victim mentality, which is like, I need an herb for something. There's something wrong with me. I don't have it within me. And surely like everybody's prone to falling in that. I'm prone to falling in that. I'm looking for, sometimes I want the strong, leave the bottle. I want the strongest stuff you got, but I'm also totally aware that sometimes it's just a matter of having the right mindset and having a plant, a spirit of a plant or actual plant, a physical plant, guiding people in that direction to for them to have and claim that power of their own integration of their own experience, rather than it being delivered by a practitioner or a plant or something outside of myself, or what my friend Chance Garten calls the messiah, which is, the something outside of myself that is not actually within me. And that's what I see. It's like this. It's all it's all fractal. It's all we're working on the biofield. It's the tree of life. It's the apple of the garden. And that same thing that's been told in all the stories. That's all part of our life too. That same thing that's in the sky that everybody has, that's all within us too. And so that's kind of like, here I am on that part of the bell curve. And I move around from time to time, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like, I mean, that's very interesting. It's a very, I like how you've developed your own way of working with the biofield using, these things you've learned from other master teachers.
And I'm also thinking about like the tuning fork too, since this is your own like flavor. It's like as a musician, that bringing that sound in and you being able to like tell the subtle, like not everybody might be able to tell the subtle shifts in the sound of the tuning fork, but
That's your city.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe. The other thing too is that, like, just like you get a sense, you get a feel, you get a sense. And I know, Isaac, you play music and you played in a band, and like there's just some times where you're just like, you don't have to say anything, you're just in the groove, and then everybody knows around you and just kind of fall into it.
Yeah.
And there's other times where you really are trying to force it, and this is dangerous for practitioners. And really, I would advise this for all practitioners, is to find that neutral spot. It takes work. It takes practice to be in the zone. But when you push forward to be in the zone, then you recognize that the will is neutral. Once you're in that neutral position, you drop out, and it's just like the universe comes in, God comes in and fills it up. And I use that word because it's like the easiest word to use, but whatever word you want to use for the creative aspect of life, right?
Yeah, and like just like to get into that, it could be like a flow state, or but that groove, with other musicians. You have to have, practiced many hours with your instrument and played with it, played so many hours. And just like if you're fishing, you've got to have cast that out and snagged a rock or a weed or a fish all those different times in order to be able to feel it,
Yep.
like
Yeah,
that
it's
is
true.
it's important. The practice is very important, but then finding that flow state or that groove, yeah. And I really like, you're working on the etheric body. Is how I would term it, and it is like a
Yeah, I would too.
yeah. So it's like this the like the structure. It structures. It's like a framework for then the physical to manifest within. So then, yeah, it's interesting how that works.
It
Because I guess a lot of energy healing, I think, is working on the etheric body, or the vital body. And then, I feel like astrology, there are other modalities that are more, you're working on like a karmic level, like you're looking at, but even you can still see these patterns. They're going through all these different levels, and if you can loosen it at any one of those higher levels, then it allows it to be loosened on the physical level, and it still has to go through the integration, the healing, because healing takes time, but there's like it's like that knot has been loosened.
Yeah, that's exactly kind of like the way that I feel it too when I'm working with tuning. It's kind of like, in the same way like a massage practitioner might be like, oh, here it is. I've just moved the fascial adhesion or whatever. I'm just like, oh, what is it? Why is this not moving? Okay, then it occurs to the client like, oh, on my, whatever birthday, I got locked in the bathroom or something like that, and I felt like alone and scared, and ever since then, like, um, and then okay, whoop, we just move it through. Okay, tab closed,
Right.
that.
energy restored.
Yeah.
And that is such an interesting. I mean, talking about like the tree, like with the rings, it's like our whole past is here now in our present. You know, there's it's all it's all with us, and it all affects our current uh state.
Yeah, the eternal now. It's right. Yeah. That's why the natal chart is so fascinating to me because it's like it is like the place where almost it's like our seat in this grand theater of, like an IMAX dome, like where is our spot? Where is our spot where we get to experience this, as like as the center? And you can get up and go to the bathroom and do all the other things, but you always have that place to return, which is like the eternal moment, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
What for you? When did you get into astrology as well?
Um, I'm just into astrology.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
I love one of the things that plant people are so good at is like finding ways to learn more about plants through other traditions like tarot or
Yes.
astrology or spiritual traditions. And so that's kind of the way for me. It's like I just wanted to accelerate my learning path. I'm I'm communicating with the plants. I'm aware of the seasons. I'm trying to live as much as I can in accordance with the seasons. And so it just seemed natural for me to do that. So my introduction to astrology was through doing a lesson that I called Herb of the Week, and it was just a podcast that I did. I did $1 an episode, $52 for all these like hour-long things. But I structured it in the way that all of the herbs that I'd be talking about throughout the year would fit into the the zodiacal house. So, or sorry, the zodiacal sign. So the first one, March 21st, is cayenne pepper. Cayenne
Okay.
pepper
Yeah.
is Aries to
Yeah.
go. It's like, let's
Yes.
go.
For
And
sure.
and then you moving your way through, and then you're in Gemini, and there's a lot of mints. There's the cognate mental and mint as well, and the expression with the communication, and so that was really. It's just really fun. It was really fun for me to learn astrology through understanding a deeper way of learning about plants and their qualities, and
Mhm.
that's really what I'm all about is the qualitative aspect. And
Hmm.
so yeah.
As I noticed your aromatic astrology incense line,
Oh
and
yeah.
that really caught my eye.
I
Yeah.
love this is another thing I love doing. And so I as a medicine maker too, and
Hmm.
an herb shop owner, like I got really nerdy with it. So for 2 years, I made the box sets. So I would like it's like what was Capricorn season coming up? It was like Shilajit, Solomon Seal's molasses syrup. That was
Ooh.
one product.
Oh my gosh. I
So that
want
was,
that.
yeah, it was awesome. Like mountains, Solomon seal, really helpful for the connective tissue and the bones. And Solomon also, it's like, it's got the signatures of Saturn where it gets away from the like six-pointed star, looking away from the monocot, looking away from the sun and all this stuff. And so like at 4 or 5, like an elderberry something, elderberry tea. I think of elder as like really Capricornian. And
Totally.
and then I would make an incense for all of these boxes. So they all had different items, but they all had an incense. And I use hand roll. I do like a Japanese style hand rolled incense with mako powder, and I make little cones. And like for the example, the Capricorn, which is on my mind because I got to make it, is got oak moss, wintergreen, vetiver, and like birch. And oh my gosh, it's so cold and old and like
Right.
really good, like rooting and like very earthy. The
Yes.
Sagittarian one has like wild sages, artemisias, things that I acquired on my travels.
Nice.
So
That's
wild
perfect.
sages, pinyon pine, which is,
Oh,
very, I think of like the pine tree is like kind of similar looking to the Sagittarian sigil,
nice.
the arrow. And also it's like this fiery, it's a wildfire tree, the pinyon pine.
Mm.
And so that's something I've been making for years is these incense astro aromatics. And so a couple years ago at the Good Medicine Confluence at the time you all know Jesse
Yeah.
Wolfhard, and at the time it was in Colorado. I was like, I've been making this incense for a while. I should just do a class. And so I did a whole class on that, and I proposed it to them. And he's like, yeah, what other ones you got? So I went out to Colorado. I taught 3 or 4 classes, and became good friends with that fella. And
Nice.
but that's been something that I've really enjoyed doing. It's a really great, fun, hands, like, for me, blah blah blah, herbs, books, in one ear, out the other. When I'm working with my hands, when I'm chironic, when I'm experiential,
Yeah.
that's when I feel embodied. I feel embodied by the lesson, and that's the way I like to teach, and that's
Mhm.
the way I like to learn, is through the experience. And so, when it comes to astro aromatics, the thing, the thing about the senses too is that, taste, touch, sight, they all go through a particular filter, whereas smell, right to the old brain, right to the limbic
Yeah.
center, right to the place where we have emotions and memories. And it really connects us where we might have these memories in our field, kind of like hanging out in our field. And I remember the first time I had a charcoal and I was doing a class, and it was just a charcoal and some ashes. And I'm like, no, this one is cinnamon. This is bark of cassia cinnamon. And I put some on there, and immediately I was teleported. This is why aromatic plants have psychoactive properties, because they take our consciousness on just like a regular level. Like, you could walk through a pine forest and you could be in your center, and now all of a sudden your perception is far away. Like, you could see outside of yourself. Your consciousness is there. But at this point in time, I was a young kid on my grandmother's kitchen. I could remember clearly the smell of cinnamon in the air. It must have been the
Yeah.
holidays. I'm looking at the tiles of the floor. I see clear patterns. I'm looking underneath the refrigerator. I can see dust bunnies. This
Wow.
memory just boom, right back to my mind. And so when I teach the aromatics classes, I'm all about how people's memories come up and get jogged about this. Sometimes they can be traumatic memories too. They're not all good. And that's the thing about, like, having these memories in our field. Maybe we saved them there for something else to process later.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway,
And
what-
they speak to our astral, they speak to our memories when sense, like smells.
yeah,
But they also speak to that like spiritual realm. Like, how do we connect to angels, to gods? We light frankincense, like even in the Catholic Church, like it just moves through the sense, move through all of these different realms, from the physical all the way up to the spiritual angelic realms.
yeah, well said. Yeah, and it seems to, like, yeah, appeal to our higher self too. And some of these things is like,
Definitely.
yeah, like, oh, it's very pleasing to me to be able to smell frankincense and clear the
Oh,
air, or like,
so much so.
or like, I got this. It's Tuesday. It's Mars Day, so I was like, I got to wear my red and black hunting flannel. To be
Perfect.
astrologically appropriate.
Yeah.
But I had to, I got it from a thrift store, so I got to smudge it first. So that's the other thing
Yeah.
about the aromatics, is that they create a space to claim whatever it is, the psychic space around it. So whatever etheric old man, imprint was still on this is, like, gone when I smudge it
Yes.
out, and now it's mine.
Yes.
That's this old
Totally.
man's etheric imprint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. It's very effective for sure.
This also brings us to this idea of, you say, holotropic learning,
Yeah.
and I think that's very important. Like, you talk about using myths in learning, teaching, and in healing, I assume, as well, um, because it does it. I think it's one of the fun things about learning different systems, and we talk about, like, you're learning astrology through the plants. It's like it gives us a framework in a way to play with an idea to then understand it. And I feel like myths are doing a similar thing, and also taking us up to, like, myths are really working on, like, a more a subtle level, I think.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah. So from your perspective, like, why do you love myths in learning and teaching? Um, yeah. What is
Yeah,
holotropic?
that's the thing. Holotropic. The word holotropic means, hollow means wholeness, and tropic is referring to, like, moving towards. And so one image that comes to mind for a holotropic thinker is like, the Charlie guy from the Always Sunny in Philadelphia with a whole bunch of like conspiracy boards on the back and like lines going through it, like another way of thinking it is like just you have all of this different data points from the various ways that you experience your reality, from the spiritual experiences that we have to the aha moments that we have, to the innovative ideas that we have, to what has been written, all the various ways that we can move around the wheel of experience. And it's another way of saying it is like pattern recognizer. What's connecting this to this? What's connecting an apple from the Garden of Eden, or that hit Newton on his head, to the toroidal shape of my electromagnetic energy that I'm feeling in the body, that type of thing. And so the thing about myth that's so interesting to me is that is like our subconscious is always taking in symbols and myths, and that's why, oh wow, look at that.
Oh my goodness.
I just counted and some balloons flew up. That was funny. So it's a way of bypassing the I know, my ego, that which protects me from not being able to see outside of the box. And that's what I really love about myths, is that they really complete the story. And that's the reason why they have been information, or things that are of great importance are packed into myths so delicately that you can have a myth like the Garden of Eden, which I consider a myth. I don't take it at face value. Maybe it actually is, but that's the thing, is that it can have all of these different layers. Like within the Garden of Eden, I see biology, I see cosmology, I see logos and nous, and all of the and relational aspects to each other, and all of that stuff. And so this is one. And then people like Carl Linnaeus was also really fond of myths. And so the fact that like for example, yarrow, Achillea millefolium, named after Achilles, the warrior, when people talk about, even when somebody says yarrow, the word yarrow, arrow, hero, you could find a philological throughput to the hero archetype, which is Achilles. Now, what does the hero archetype represent? What is it? It's not just this Greek myth, but like, how could that play out in my life? We have all of these archetypes influencing us, within us, these stories that are occurring. And it just so, it probably just so happens that for me, I also relate, like I have this, what I call botanical biofield guide, and where I put in like the spirit of some of these plants in the positions of the biofield to kind of remember them or learn them better. Or as another way of saying it from a holotropic point of view is, when you create correspondence, then there's always like a kernel of truth, and that when like you create correspondence with a kernel of truth, it crystallizes and it continues to create truth. And that's why before we started recording, Isaac and I were talking about like corresponding astrological plants. Like, Culpeper has his idea, and a lot of people go to Culpeper by the book. But, we can also claim that for ourselves. We can claim that through the relationship that we have with the plants. And so for me, when I'm thinking about yarrow, Achillea millefolium, I'm also thinking about the warrior archetype. I'm thinking about how that affects people in the biofield through their left ankle, because remember, Achilles was struck down by his left ankle. And what does the left ankle represent in the biofield? Well, it represents feeling stuck to something. Like whereas the right foot is like, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna move forward, I'm on the right path. The left is like, am I able to pull my leg up? In the tarot, we see this too. In the Rider-Waite tarot, the Fool is with his right foot is going over the edge. The right foot is moving ahead, whereas the left foot is like, am I able to take away whatever it is that's the that's holding me back. And that is all reflected in the myth of Achilles, all the different myths of Achilles. Like whereas Achilles, not only as the warrior, but also as the one who needs to learn how to give up whatever it is that's bothering him after killing Hector, and not finding any peace at all, and just being kind of stuck on his path. And I was also forgetting the Thoth tarot, the Fool card has the right foot, moving out towards you, and the left foot is planted, just like plantain in the left foot too. So anyway, the myths and the stories to me conjure a bigger picture of knowing the archetype of the plant, of knowing the spirit of the plant, and therefore from that I can work with all the different virtues, we could say uses of the plant, because again, on this bell curve, I'm wondering, are the plants actually doing anything? Or is it the narrative that is encoded in some of these myths that's actually revealing something in the psyche that allows that blockage to move through? And the plant that's holding these myths through popular culture, or through the way that the myths have been, kept and held, or even through our own association with the myths and plants,
Sure.
Allows that to move through. So that's why it's so important to me to have the myths. Yeah, or to just, it's fun too. I do herb walks, and I'm like, I get so bored with like, this one has alkaloids and blah blah blah. I'm like, oh, I just want to hear I want the gravy, I want the myths, I want the meat,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The myths are also, I mean, like that's the ethnobotanical resonances of that plant. Like, why is it named that? What does that mean? How is it connected to these myths, like Achillea? That is very. It is a lot more interesting, I think, as
Yeah.
well.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and myths are healing, and that's one thing that I mean, we talk about myths in our culture. There's this myth that myths are myth that they're not true. They're false stories, But there's a quote from Sallust, the Roman pagan, who says, myths are what never was, but always is.
Yeah, that's a great quote.
Yeah, I love that quote.
That's a
But
great quote.
it taps you into that, like that realm, that archetypical realm. Um, yeah, and that's where there
Understanding and healing can take place. Yeah.
yeah.
But also awareness of cosmology. Like these myths are not only below, like not only are we seeing, the mythic allegory in Elecampaign, for example, Helen of the Campania, the campaign for Helen in the Trojan War, another Achillean reference, Elecampaign, but also, or Inula Hellenium,
Right.
but also as above. We see the allegories in the myths that are passing through our night sky over and over. And, Hercules, the constellation of Hercules, or of Ophiuchus, who, if we're into true sky astrology, we're like, right now as we're recording, we're in Ophiuchus, which is where the sun is going through this little tiny constellation. And so who is that? Who's Ophiuchus? Well, it's all these myths that are unpacked. Ophiuchus is also Asclepius, is also the healer of the gods. And it's funny because it's the heel of Ophiuchus, which the sun is passing through. So it's not just the healer, but this is where the pun craft and mythology come in. And this is where it bypasses into our subconscious, because we're talking about a homonym that our subconscious still recognizes as, yes, it's the healer, pointing and rising up out of the zodiac and pointing to the North Star and projecting us to a 360-degree dome, rather than the plane ecliptic of the sun. And that's kind of one of the special things about this particular time of year, I guess you could say, is that the awareness of that is from a solar perspective, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to remember the importance of folk etymologies and puncraft, because there is this movement a lot of like mugwort doesn't really have anything to do with mugs and drinking. It's really it's actually that's not the correct etymology, which like I think puns and these homonyms have always been played an important role in all names and all
But
naming.
it was beer, right? Like used for beer. So
Well,
maybe it did have something to do with a mug.
well, that's
Yeah,
that's the folk etymology.
right. Okay.
But it
I
was actually
totally agree. Is that
midge work because
that's
they
what
got,
it's
got rid of midges. So
Oh.
it's from like getting rid of flying insects. That's but so then people will say like, it's just mid, it's not doesn't have anything to do with drinking, but it does.
right.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's puns are awesome, and I think that's why I think that like we were talking about going back to the beginning. We were talking about the different traditions, and that's all they are different languages. They're just different ways of taking something that's not, we're trying to explain what's true in front of us. How do you explain an element? You have to first, create a simulacrum of it in the language in order to explain it. And the more meaning that you could pack into language, the more explanatory power or the more meaning it can have. And so that's why I think um, God's really funny. Because
yeah.
because because when you find puns and they have all these cross meanings, it's just kind of fun, and that's just the part. Like I'm saying the creative aspect. Like when we are engaging in the creative aspect, in the image of our creator, as I like to think, um, we're doing the same thing. We're doing the same thing. We're just creating. We're just having fun. We're just
Yeah.
making puns. So
Yeah.
what? Mugwort. Also, mug backwards is gum. And is
You
it good
can
for the
chew
gums?
mugwort.
I don't know. I'm just like
Yeah.
spitballing here.
My Montgomery gave us that shirt for Plant Cunning Conference one year. She gave us a bunch of leftover t-shirts that had a little picture of mugwort and it just said, I got mugged. Speaking of mugwort puns.
Yeah. But it's important to know like, meaning doesn't exist somewhere out there. It's always relational, you know? Meaning is relational. And so the more relationships that you're creating and discovering, the more meaning there is.
That's, I think, the meaning of life. Like that's just my opinion, but that's the meaning is to actually create meaning, like
Yeah.
and to
Yeah.
find all these ways to make meaning. And so, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, well, this has been a very fun conversation, Kyle. Is there anything that you'd like to say before we wrap up and or let people know how they can find out about you and what you're doing?
Yeah, thanks. I've had fun too. Yeah, so tippecanoeherbs.com is my website. Tippecanoe Herbs on Instagram and YouTube. I got a new podcast out called the Resonature Podcast. You can find that on your usual suspects, iTunes and whatnot. And let's see here. I just wanted to say one of the things that I really enjoy about your show, all the fun guests that you have, there's great, you always bring great content, but it's always awesome to see you two together. I just love the love that's emanating out of your side of the screen,
Aw.
and it's very, very present. And so
Oh,
it's
that's so
it's
sweet.
been awesome to be a part of that in this conversation. So thanks,
Well,
y'all.
thanks, Kyle. That's really sweet.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thanks for being on the show. And it's
Uh,
been a pleasure.
The pleasure's mine. Thanks, y'all.
Cheers.